morning. Can you say good morning?
Money.
We're going to start today's class learning about kelp forest. But first, you need to go take attendance, right? Right?
Right.
All right, take attendance and then come take these notes. Okay, guys, let's label our notes. Nice and ginormous. Kelp Forest Notes Part 1. You can handwrite them on paper and take pictures of the paper and submit them to Schoology. Or you can write them in Notability and then submit them to Schoology. That way, either way, they are handwritten and submitted to Schoology, right? All right, let's talk about it. Kelp. Kelp's a seaweed. And seaweeds are super important primary producers in the ocean. They are a type of algae. They can be micro or they can be macro. In the case of the kelp, they are macro. They're kind of ginormous. Okay, all of our seaweeds or our algae are eukaryotic and multicellular, but they don't have the same true leaves, stems, and roots that plants do. So we're going to come back to that later. Type 1 of seaweed is a green seaweed. There are about 7,000 species, but only 10% of them are marine. So most of these green seaweeds or green algae are found on land. They have the same type of pigments to do photosynthesis as our land plants, the chlorophyll A and B and the carotenoids. They do store excess energy in starch. They do have cellulose in their cell walls. And they do have a thallus with calcium carbonate. Don't worry if you don't know what a thallus is yet. We're going to get to it. The next type of seaweed is a brown algae, and almost all brown algae are marine. Some are macroscopic, and they can be up to more than 300 feet, like our kelp. They do prefer shallow, cold water. They have the pigments A, C, and fucoxanthin. And examples of our brown algae are kelp, rockweeds, and sargassum. And I know you know what sargassum is because we've seen it. Kelp are found in temperate and polar locations. They're the largest of our seaweeds. In some species, they can be hundreds of feet in length. What I want you to know, though, is that kelp forests are among the most productive marine communities. There is a ginormous amount of biodiversity in these kelp forests. Hint, hint, wink, wink, star, underline. So the next brown algae that I said I knew you were familiar with is this brown seaweed that comes up. They float in giant masses. A lot of them live in the Atlantic Ocean, so I know that you have been to the beach and you've seen this washed up on shore. The next type of seaweed is our red seaweed, our red algae. Almost all of these are marine. They have chlorophyll A and phycobilins and other red photosynthetic filaments. So these guys like warm or cold water, shallow, but some can be found deep. They're like the coralline algae that you can find just about anywhere. Okay, some types of seaweed are commercially important. Algin we get from our kelp. It's used as an emulsifier for a lot of food products. That makes it like a little thicker. Okay, they can use it in your yogurt and your milkshakes, and it's even in cosmetics and toothpaste and canned meats. Tasty. Alright, so those are the types of seaweeds and why some seaweed is important. So let's talk about life in the kelp forest ecosystem. It's really similar to a terrestrial forest. So it's got like a dense forest with kelp growing from the seafloor to the ocean surface. Some of your biotic factors are the giant kelp themselves, the sea otters, the sea urchins, mussels, crabs, sea snails. Abiotic factors are going to go right off the coastline of our rocky shores. It has to be nice, clear water. They need cool temperatures, plentiful sunlight, and lots of nutrients that come from upwelling. It's one of the most unique habitats in the world, and where most algae in the ocean are tiny, like planktonic, these guys are huge. So they're a type of brown algae, and they are considered protists. So remember, if you're not a plant, you're not an animal, you're not a fungi, you're not a bacteria, and you're not an archaea bacteria, that was my garbage can kingdom, If you didn't fit like all the rest, you got to get into the protist kingdom. So they're protist because they lack true leaves, stems, and roots. So they're not really a plant. So I can imagine a question, hint, hint, wink, wink, star, underline, that would say, kelp forests are made out of kelp plants. And obviously you would choose false, even though they're multicellular and they are autotrophic. They do like cool marine habitats. They like that water that's coming down from the polar seas. And then for us, it's about 70 degrees. For my honors kiddos, you guys know that the cool surface waters don't occur at the same latitudes on opposite sides of the ocean. Plus, we have the rotation of the Earth driving that warm oceanic water toward the poles. And then you have the Coriolis effect bringing that cold water back down toward the equator. Remember our great global conveyor belt where all this water is mixing, okay? So because of that, our kelp forests occur on opposing coastlines. It's kind of cool. But you can see we don't get kelps in Florida, but California and Alaska and Mexico, and you know, they're all going to get some fun kelp forests. Now, kelp grow extremely rapidly because they get nutrients supplied from upwelling, which is the replacement of surface waters from below with nutrient-rich waters that are nice and cool. Okay? We've talked about upwelling before, but just to come back to it one more time. Now, kelp anatomy. Let's talk about the parts of our kelp and why it's not really a plant. All right, there's 7 parts. You got a blade, a stipe, a pneumaticist, a frond, a holdfast, a haptera, and a sporophyte. The blade, it's kind of like the leaf portion, but it's not a real leaf. Okay, it is the main area where photosynthesis is occurring. Recall that photosynthesis is where the plant takes in sunlight and carbon dioxide and water and produces glucose and oxygen. And for my honors, the kelp have this ability to do what's called translocation, and it's the movement of photosynthetic nutrients to parts of the kelp that are like in the shade that don't get enough sunlight to do the photosynthesis. It also is one of the reasons that kelp grow really fast, like up to 2 feet a day, because they can continue growing even at night. All right, so the stipe. This is what you guys would like to call the stem. Okay, it extends vertically from the holdfast and provides a support framework. The blades do grow off of this. It's kind of like a plant stalk. Okay? Now, they don't transport any nutrients like a plant does. Okay, so like normally a root would absorb some nutrients and they would go up through the stem out to the leaves. The stipe does not do this, therefore it's one of the reasons it's not really considered a plant. All right, then we have the pneumaticist, and the pneumaticysts are gas-filled bladders at the base of each of the frond that lift the algae towards the surface. What kind of gas is inside of these gas bladders? Nitrogen, oxygen, and a little bit of carbon dioxide. And you can see all those round little bubbles are pneumaticysts, and just right there at the base. Now, when you combine your blade, your stipe, and your pneumaticist, that part is called a frond. So it's 3 pieces that they call a frond. All right, now, the lift from the pneumaticist, bringing it up towards the surface, is counteracted by the holdfast. And the holdfast, its job is literally to hold fast to the rock on the bottom. So I just said earlier that they grow really off of the coastlines of the rocky shore, and so the beach down there is really rocky, and so they are able to hold on to those rocks. Now, they do not supply any water or nutrients to the rest of the kelp plant. Oh, I just shouldn't have said plant. To the rest of the kelp. Okay? Protist. Instead, nutrients, water, and carbon dioxide are directly absorbed from the surrounding seawater into the blades. And this is also why the blade is not considered a true leaf. So, the blade absorbs what it needs. The stipe just provides support, doesn't transport any nutrients, and the holdfast doesn't absorb any nutrients, it just holds on. So that is why the blade and the stipe and the holdfast make kelp a protist. Now, on each of the holdfasts, so here you've got the holdfast where you can see it attached to the ground right there, okay? There are these itty bitty little teeny tiny little projections that come off of it, okay? And those are called haptera, and their job is also to just help sticky fingers hold on to that rock. Okay, now the complex, strong holdfast that anchors this kelp to the seed floor allows for the blades to be, the stipe and the blades to be flexible, and they can move with the waves. Growth is going to occur between the stipe and the blade instead of at the tip like most plants. Let me say that again. Usually plants have meristems at the tips and they grow from there. Here we have growth occurring between the stipe and the blade. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Now, why is this important for this to be an adaptation that the kelp have for living in the sea? Because we've got erosion from our wind and our waves. Alright, finally we get down to the last piece that's called the sporophyte, and it's really down close to the holdfast, right down here, okay? And its job is to produce billions of algae spores. And these are teeny tiny little microscopic cells that are released from the sporophyll blades, and they're fertilized and they become teeny tiny little kelp. So yes, there are boy spores and there are girl spores, and they will meet and become zoospores, and then they fertilize and become baby kelps. So here is our lovely life cycle here. The sporophytes releasing the spores, they go through meiosis, you've got the female and the male, they fertilize, they're a zygote, and they will go through the entire life cycle again. Okay, so what I would like you to do right now is to draw a picture as good as you can, as close as you can to this, or print it out and glue it on your notes, or copy and paste it into your notes if you're doing it on Notability. But I need you to have the blade, the pneumatocyst, the stipe, the sporophyte, the holdfast, and the haptera, and the frond all labeled. Then your next job is to go to Edpuzzle and do the Edpuzzle from Jonathan Bird on the kelp forest. Alright, so now you know that kelp is a seaweed and you know about their anatomy. So not too bad, right? It's a good start to kelp forest. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend and I will see you next week. Can you say bye?
Bye, Kevin.
Oh, you switched the screen. Now say bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Bye, guys. Miss you.